Krishna Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Prema Puru Vipur Nirmankshabiya Namushaprasaham Prajnana Sudasa Sarasapakaram Krishna Bhagavan Vachansi Me Hare Krishna. So, our today's session will be dedicated to the life without conflicts, and this is quite an interesting subject because if we think about it, can we have life without conflicts? Is it possible? No. So what are we talking about? We're talking about Bhagavad Gita. Because in my experience, and I have more than a decade of professional conflict resolution experiences, being trained mediator and resolving dozens and dozens of cases, starting with very challenging ones, dealing with I think the biggest case was 5 conflicting groups and 20 years of history and 3 court cases at the same time, and death threats, and going down to very simple family disputes and things like that. So quite a wide range of conflicts resolved successfully by Krishna's mercy. Not a single failure. So I believe that these professional methods really work. But studying all kinds of manuals on conflict resolution, I came to the conclusion that the greatest manual is Bhagavad Gita. Just by comparative study, because if you think about it, Bhagavad Gita is quite contradictory in one sense, right? That from one hand, Krishna is telling Arjuna to fight and kill his enemies. At the same time, he tells him that you have to be very compassionate to everyone and very kind and never have any enemies and be very peaceful. And for Arjuna, it was very hard to figure out how is it possible to peacefully kill everybody. Right? Peace and war, these are the 2 concepts which seem to be conflicting. And so, but this is the greatness of Bhagavad Gita, because it helps us to understand how to resolve all the conflicts we are facing. And there are many verses in Bhagavad Gita, extremely deep verses. We'll look into a couple of them, as much as we have time. But it's very interesting that the most powerful professional methods of resolving are based on the principles of Bhagavad Gita. I think Bhagavad Gita is still waiting for its hour of glory, because not many people have, even though people study it quite thoroughly, but not many people have discovered its real meaning yet. And so, we'll discuss this first principle, how it is possible to live without conflicts in the world and in the life which is full of conflicts and problems. There is a saying that if you don't have any problems, then most probably you're already dead. Because only dead people have no problems. They never complain about anything. They just lie there peacefully. And you can do to them anything you want. They will not protest. And so, but as long as we live, we'll always have problems, we'll always have conflicts. And the most obvious example is that according to medical science, within our bodies there are more than 2,000 categories or types of bacteria. Many of them are capable of causing terminal diseases. We're not even talking about numbers. Those numbers are really scary. It says that only on the surface of human body there are more living entities than people on the surface of the globe. Wow. Right? What to speak of inside. And so, how come that we are attacked from all sides, outside and inside, and we're still alive? Anyone knows what helps us to stay alive? What is the system within the body which helps us to stay alive, despite of all the attacks? Super soul.
The immune system?
Immunity system, yes. Immune system. And what is the meaning of immune system? It means that we are killing, right? Automatically killing. So that's the principle of life. Jiva jivasya jivanam. For us to survive, we have to kill in massive quantities, right? So, welcome to the murderers club. Every single second we're killing billions and billions of others just for the sake of enabling ourselves to live. And this is one reason, by the way, why it is recommended to constantly chant the holy name, right? Because every second you're killing. And if those living entities listen at least to the holy name, at least one holy name, while they're dying, they'll get spiritual benefits, right? But if they don't listen to the holy name, they get no benefit, right? So just purposeless killing, purposeless death. So that's why Lord Chaitanya says, Kirtanya Sadahari, always chant the holy name. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And in this way you benefit billions of living entities every second, not just yourself. Sometimes we think we are chanting alone in the room and no one benefits from our chanting. No, so many benefit. And so, we will read one of the texts from Bhagavad Gita which helps us to understand the principle of peaceful life despite of so many tribulations which constantly come and go. And this is chapter 2, contents of the Gita summarized. text 56. We'll read it after the invocational mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Dukkesha nuvignamana sukkesha vigataspriha vitaragabhaya kratha stitadu muniruchyate. Translation. One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. Very deep verse, but already Srila Prabhupada's purport. The word muni means one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion. It is said that every muni has a different angle of vision, and unless a muni differs from other munis, he cannot be called a muni in the strict sense of the term. Nachasa Rishiryasya Matam Nabhinam. But a Stita de Muni, as mentioned herein by the Lord, is different from an ordinary Muni. The Stita de Muni is always in Krishna consciousness, for he has exhausted all his business of creative speculation. So this is very important because knowledge is only good when it is applied, but if it is theoretical knowledge, it's pretty useless, right? For example, how many of you are aware that I know karate, aikido, jiu-jitsu, kung fu, and many other scary words, right? So I may know so many scary words. How many people will get scared of that? Right? How much it will help me. So, unless knowledge is applied practically, it's pretty useless, right? And so this is what Srila Prabhupada is stressing here, that we should not be theoretical wise men, we should be practical. And so Stita Virmuni means one who actually applies knowledge in life. He is called Prashanta Nishasha Manoratantara, or one who has surpassed the stage of mental speculation and has come to the conclusion that Lord Sri Krishna or Vasudeva is everything. He is called a Muni fixed in mind. Such a fully Krishna conscious person is not at all disturbed by the onslaughts of the threefold miseries, for he accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds, and he sees that his miseries by the grace of the Lord are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord, thinking himself unworthy of the happiness. He realizes that it is due only to the Lord's grace that he is in such a comfortable condition and able to render better service to the Lord. And for the service of the Lord, he is always daring and active, and is not influenced by attachment or aversion. Attachment means accepting things for one's own self-gratification, and detachment is the absence of such sensual attachment. But one fixed in Krishna consciousness has neither attachment nor detachment because his life is dedicated in the service of the Lord. Consequently, he is not at all angry, even when his attempts are unsuccessful. Success or no success, a Krishna conscious person is always steady in his determination. So we will try to see how to live the life which is free from conflicts, despite of being always absorbed in conflicts. And the most important principle is here on this slideshow. It is called resilience, right? So the question is, the problems will always be there, but do you bend or break, right? Of course, we have the ultimate bending solution. Bow down, Mr. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. We bend low, offering our obeisances to the Supreme Lord, and so this is the best way to make sure that all the troubles, they just go overhead, right? Like in Mahabharata, there is an episode how Kauravas, they used lethal, very powerful weapon against the Pandavas, and there was no counter measure against this weapon. And so, what then Krishna advised to the Pandavas? And this weapon was attacking those who were in the fighting spirit, right? And then Krishna said, the only way to counteract this weapon, there is no way to counteract this weapon. But if you just lie down peacefully and forget about the fight, this weapon will not be able to touch you, right? And so this is what they did. They just paid full dandavats. And so this weapon then went over their heads and blew somewhere in the distance. And then they stood up and continued fighting. So yeah, there are sometimes this is the only solution to the problems, right? Just lay low and let the problem pass over your head and then stand up and carry on. It was very interesting when I was a child in the school, and one of the war veterans, Second World War veteran, was invited, and we had a conversation with him, and he was remembering the days when he was fighting in the war. It was very interesting. But one thing he said, I'll always remember. He said there is a myth, very popular myth, that the greatest wars in history, are those who stand, tall and strong and go against the enemy and they defeat everybody. He said, we had these kind of guys. And they were the ones who were killed first. Because, you stand very tall and strong and you provide very good target, right? But those who were real heroes, those who, achieved a lot, were the guys who were very careful, who were like, staying very low and sometimes crawling on their belly, etc., and doing whatever it took to achieve the goal, right? So yes, humility is much more powerful than foolish bravada, right? Foolish braveness. And so, yeah, this is, we can say, the ultimate solution to all the conflicts. That some time ago in Russia, in Moscow, there was a very powerful hurricane. And this hurricane was uprooting very old and very big trees, oaks. And some of those oaks were more than 100 years old. And so they were so thick that few people would not be able to, make a circle around them. And they were all uprooted by the tree. So powerful was the hurricane. Uprooted by this hurricane. And nevertheless, there was so much grass under those oaks. And grass was not uprooted. Not a single blade of grass was uprooted. Why? Yes, because the grass is very flexible. So this is one of the greatest solutions. It says that blessed are the flexible, because they will never be bent out of shape. So, and for anyone who is practicing yoga, this is, if not the most important thing, it's one of the most important things, right? Flexibility. The more flexible you are, the better you can do any posture, any asana. And our practice is also so-called yoga, right? What kind of yoga we practice? Bhakti yoga. And so what kind of flexibility we should develop? Become flexible in our consciousness. And so if you have this kind of flexibility, nothing, not a single problem can ever affect you. And so this is what this verse recommends, Dukesha nudvignamana, that do not become disturbed in mind in the presence of any problems. And we can all understand that it would be very good to develop this kind of flexibility, right? Be undisturbed under any circumstance, under any trials and tribulations. But then this verse is also telling us something else. Sukeshu vigatas priha. Do not become elated or excited when there is happiness. And we might be wondering what's wrong with happiness. Right? Why should not we feel happy if things are going nicely? Any problem? Yes or no?
Because people forget.
Misery follows after that.
Huh?
Misery follows after that.
Misery follows after that. How come? There should be uninterrupted happiness, right? Why it is followed by misery?
That's the nature of this world.
Okay, nature of this world.
It's a material happiness, which is short-lived, not eternal happiness.
Yeah.
There's a beginning and an end.
Okay. So this is really important for us, because what is happiness? This is really important for us to, kind of keep in mind that happiness in this world is nothing but introduction to misery. And it's basically illusion. No matter how sad it sounds, there is no happiness in this world. But it doesn't mean you should be miserable all the time. We'll talk about it. But I'm pretty sure that all of you have these kind of experiences, that there was something really exciting happening in your life, and you were anticipating great happiness, right? And life gave you amazing offer, right? And with bold letters it was said, you will be very happy. And we tried that, but we failed to read the fine print at the bottom, all the terms and conditions. And when the time came, that those fine prints were brought up to our attention. Right? Anyone had this kind of experience, that you became too much elated in the happiness and you failed to notice the fine print and you had the problem? Anyone had this experience? Okay, yes, very good. So this is what this verse recommends. Don't be too elated in happiness, right? That's why I come from Russia originally, and in Russia we have a saying that, cheese, this is something most people enjoy, right? How many of you love cheese? Please raise your hands if you love cheese, okay? Especially in sabji, right? Paneer sabji. But in Russia we say that free cheese is only available in a mouse trap. So, and unfortunately, yes, that I'm pretty sure that at least once, and I think more than once, all of you have this experience. Getting excited about free cheese, the life over you, right? But you failed to see the trap, right? How many of you have this experience? Failing to see the trap. Okay. So this is what this verse recommends. Don't get too excited about things, right? Check it out first. If it's real happiness, or is it another experience? What is experience? What's the definition of experience? Experience is something you get when you don't get what you expect. This is called experience in life. And so, therefore, many verses in Bhagavad Gita, they recommend that we should become free from duality of this world. Right? Anyone who has read Bhagavad Gita will know that there are more than a dozen verses at least which say that we should become free from the duality. And so, let's see, how many of you are interested to become free from the duality of the material world? Okay, good. Then I want you to either remember or best write down the formula for overcoming the duality. Because duality, we can say, means trouble and happiness, right? Trouble on the one side and happiness on the other side. And the formula is as follows. Look for benefits in trouble, or we can say trouble and benefits. This is the duality. Look for benefits in trouble and trouble and benefits. Yes, exactly. Right? And so every benefit has trouble, but every trouble has benefit. This is how this world is organized. And so just think about it. If you see benefit in trouble, does benefit remains a benefit? Yes or no?
Yep.
No, sorry. If you see benefit in trouble, is trouble remains trouble for you?
No.
If you see benefit?
No.
No, yes. It is neutralized. And if you see trouble and benefit, is it remaining a benefit? If you see trouble in it, also not, right? So, if you use this formula always in life, if you see benefit in trouble and trouble in benefit, then neither trouble nor benefit can ever affect you, right? And so, I think it's really important for us to practice this because, as we said, theoretical knowledge is not really helpful if we do not practice it, if we don't put it in practice. And so I wanted you to tell the devotee next to you in pairs, what is the biggest, we can say, material trouble, right? Because spiritually we also have many troubles, right? but we're talking about material world. So materially, what is the biggest trouble you have in life? Tell to each other, just briefly. What is your biggest trouble? Kids can tell to each other that I'm not getting the toy I really want, so that's the trouble.
Anxiety.
For me, it's at this stage, never think it's enough. Always thinking it's insufficient. But actually, it's not enough. So I have to break that barrier. That's it. That's enough. Even though I'm trying my best to break that, but it's still not I call it as an addiction. From a passion become addiction. Get like studying the same coming class like this, get out of the addiction. Because there's other things like you want.
Okay, just briefly share. What is the biggest trouble you have with each other? And now you tell each other how this trouble is benefiting you. What is the benefit from the trouble?
Huh? It helps me to more to depend on Krishna. So your anxiety is helping you to depend more on Krishna. In my case, yes, there's difference, but in the end of the day, I will find that because of the trouble of the addiction, it's a very comfortable life. No headache, no issues. That help. But then the trouble is, I'm sure you are later, but then you're going to keep doing it. That's a headache. You talking? Yeah? Meditating. Huh?
What is my biggest trouble?
Anxiety. You said.
It's very important.
I know, you didn't tell me. You're not telling me. Really? Okay. Oh,
You don't go and tell him.
oh yeah, of course.
You open your mouth.
No.
31.
Daughter? A daughter is one. What's the benefit of that?
Depending on Krishna.
Okay, let's see the results.
I don't expect my children. I don't want them to get married.
Hopefully all of you could find at least one benefit from trouble, right? And so without naming the problem, if you like to share what is the benefit you saw for yourself in trouble. Anyone?
Yeah. So, it benefits me not to be greedy.
Okay, helps to become free from greed. Very good.
Yeah, and free from anger.
And anger. Okay, wow. Troubles are helping to become free from greed and anger. Very good. Anyone else? Can tell what are the benefits you saw for yourself in trouble? By the way, I saw that, discussing troubles, many of you were smiling and even laughing. I was wondering, do you tell each other jokes or something? But, it's not a normal response, right, to discussing troubles. But this is what's happening when you change your mind, when you change your perception and start seeing the benefits rather than problems. Okay, anyone else can tell us what are the benefits trouble bring?
Things are going smoothly, you tend to relax in terms of different consciousness.
Okay, yes. If everything is smoothly, then we become too comfortable, right? To familiarity breeds contempt, and trouble remove that.
Teaches you austerity of speech. Teaches you austerity of speech.
Austerity?
Of speech.
Speech.
Austerity of speech.
Austerity of speech, okay. Learning austerity of speech, very good.
Once you just facing the troubles in your life, any kind of the troubles, and you more getting more experience in your life. In the next time, how you face the trouble, you can avoid the trouble circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the experience once you face the trouble in your life.
Very good, yes. Teaching us very important lessons, gives us experience, yes. Anyone else? Benefits in trouble? No one else can tell, yes.
Chant voluntarily.
Okay, yes. Very good. Chant voluntarily. And with great enthusiasm also, right? Let's see how many of you agree that this is the benefit, that when you're in trouble, you really want to surrender unto Krishna. You think of Krishna with great intensity, you pray to Krishna, you become Krishna conscious. Anyone felt that? That in trouble it's so much easier to become Krishna conscious. What else you want, right? That's why Queen Kunti prays, let this trouble come again and again. So because it helps me to become Krishna conscious.
I feel the opposite. Like when trouble comes, my chanting goes out of whack.
What's happening with your chanting?
Goes out of whack.
Sort of out of sync. I can't chant properly.
You cannot chant. But you cannot think of Krishna?
Yeah, thinking is one thing, but chanting is the other.
Yeah. Well, chanting is meant to think of Krishna.
Okay.
So it's better to think of Krishna without chanting than chanting without thinking of Krishna. Even though, yes, we should be chanting, of course. But the purpose of chanting is to think of Krishna. Any other benefits? No one else can think.
Alertness. Alertness.
Alertness, yes. Teaches us to be very attentive. Yes. Anyone else?
Realize the temporary nature.
Huh?
Realize the temporary nature of everything.
Okay, realizing temporary nature of this world.
Directly trying to connect with God directly. Once we just in the trouble, oh God, everybody
Okay,
says, oh.
yes. Becoming Krishna conscious.
When you see the goodness in other people, often you're forced to accept help from people and it uplifts you. You see
Yes.
how good
How do we call it? Respect and humility, right? What else do you want? Troubles help us to develop respect and humility. Good. So there are so many, right? If we keep brainstorming, we can easily come to 108 benefits from trouble, right? List. And so this is very important to keep that in mind. And next time you're in trouble, think, what are the benefits? And so, how is it Krishna's mercy, right? We know theoretically that everything is Krishna's mercy, and when things are going right, it's easy to recognize that it is Krishna's mercy, right? But when things go wrong, then this is the best time to ask ourselves this question: how this is Krishna's mercy? And so this is giving us the most important benefit, spiritual benefit. And the soul, the spirit has huge potential. You can see how powerful is the soul, right? That a tiny little plant is breaking through the asphalt or concrete, even though it's so soft. But because it has spirit soul inside. So this is how amazing the potential of the spirit soul. And so an important thing for us, of course, the biggest troubles commonly we experience in our lives are troubles which come from dealing with other people, right? Directly or indirectly. And so it is important for us to understand how the conflicts are happening. That we are not the bodies, but we are identifying with the bodies in this world, and therefore we play different roles. And so conflict means you play one of the three roles which are depicted in here. That, of course, the bottom role is role of a victim, and victim is always thinking oneself to be innocent victim and thinks oneself helpless. And then, of course, victim has to be victimized by perpetrator, bad guy who has powers, right? And victim is looking for someone to help, and so turns to rescuer, right? And the problem with this position is that nobody is really taking the responsibility for one's own action. It's always somebody else's responsibility, right? You can see that the arrows are directed at somebody else. And so in this way, you can imagine victim is suffering from perpetrator and looking for help in rescuer, and rescuer is trying to influence the perpetrator, right? In this way, in the best case scenario, rescuer becomes another perpetrator, and perpetrator becomes a victim, right? But in the worst case scenario, you know, like these arrows can go in any direction. It's very interesting kind of graph that sometimes rescuer can give advice to the victim, and many times these advices are not really working in life. There is a very good proverb or saying that please take my advice because I'm not using it anyway. So we have this tendency to advise to other people, right? And the kind of advices we give them is oftentimes with something we're not doing ourselves, but we are giving this advice, right? And because we are not using that advice ourselves, oftentimes we see that our advices, they do not really work. They do not really produce the desired result. And then, of course, victim is not happy with this kind of advice, and then it attacks the rescuer. And so in this way, victim becomes perpetrator, turns into perpetrator, and rescuer turns into victim. So there are so many unlimited scenarios, and so this is like very vicious triangle of role plays, and as it is mentioned here, it is time consuming, it has hidden agendas, causes anger, it's counterproductive, it's unconscious, and very expensive way to deal with things. And I was wondering, like looking at this triangle, I call it for myself Bermuda Triangle, You know, the mystical triangle where people are getting lost. So in this victim, perpetrator, rescuer triangle, so many people are losing their lives and certainly losing their Krishna consciousness. And so, how many of you had experience of these situations, you know, being in one of those roles and experiencing how you change these roles, but the problems are still remaining? Anyone had the experience? Okay. And so, of course, we should be looking for much more solid solution than just, you know, changing these hats, changing the roles, shifting from perpetrator to victim to rescuer to perpetrator again. And so, what's the solution? And the solution is one thing. It is responsibility. And so this is a very powerful statement. Winners take responsibility, but losers blame others, right? So it's really important to kind of resolve or decide for yourself that no matter what happens in my life, I will never blame anyone, but I will take full responsibility for solving my problems. And so, therefore, we need knowledge. As Bhagavad Gita 4:42 says, ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. And one of the greatest pieces of knowledge available in Bhagavad Gita is in 6th chapter, text 32, very, very powerful text. Atma upamiyana saratara samam pashyati yojana sukham vayadi vadukam sa yogi paramamata. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true quality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna. And so, this is very, very powerful formula which can help us to become free from blame and such very counterproductive feelings as resentment and grudges, resentments. Conflicts have two kind of aspects. One is external conflict. For example, you fight with someone, right? Try to prove that you're right, somebody else is wrong. But many times, and I think it's very typical, especially in Indian communities, you have certain cultural background, you don't want to fight with anyone, right? So if someone does a wrong thing, you just tolerate, right? But the resentment is still there, right? And what is resentment? There is a joke that depression is really an anger, but without any enthusiasm, right? This is what depression is. So I think resentment is pretty much the same thing. It's anger without enthusiasm, right? But anger is very powerful negative force. And if anger is expressed externally, it destroys other people. But if anger is suppressed internally, it destroys whom? Destroys yourself, right? And so you don't want to destroy yourself, right? And so that's why anger is not an option. And life without conflict means you become free from anger altogether. Where our documents, papers. Okay. And so I wanted to offer you a very effective exercise. Actually, it's very interesting how Krishna works things out, that it's part of a very expensive professional course, and this is really this powerful exercise is fully in line with this verse from Bhagavad Gita, and it actually helps to become completely free from any negative feelings towards anyone, right? And it's a kind of, you can say, affirmation, meditation, whatever you call it. But in most cases, it really works. And I wanted you to try it out, see how it works. That for doing this exercise, and yeah, if you have anyone in your life whom you dislike, whom you have negative feelings towards, and as we have discussed, it's harmful for us in the first place to keep any negative feelings against anyone. But yeah, life is such that these negative feelings, they come, and sometimes we hold on to these negative feelings, right? And sometimes we don't even have to look very far for those people whom we have negative feelings towards, right? Sometimes these are the closest people to us who cause trouble, and we tend to hold on to negative feelings against the closest people, right? So it could be anyone. It could be any of your family members, any relative, or could be friend, could be boss, could be anybody, right? Could be another devotee even. Unfortunately, sometimes even that is happening. And if we really want to become free from that negative feeling towards that, ideally, our life should be absolutely negativity free. And so this should be our personal policy. Completely clear of all the negativity towards anyone. And so it's really important for us to learn how to do it. And so for this exercise, we want you to think of someone you dislike, but you still have to have a desire to change your attitude towards that person, at least for your own benefit, if not for any other reason. And by thinking of this person, and it's kind of confidential exercise, right? Because no one will ever know whom you're thinking about unless you tell somebody, right? By thinking of that person in your mind, we will want you to repeat few words after me altogether. But important thing is to kind of repeat those words consciously, thinking about the meaning of the words rather than just mechanically repeating them, okay? And so the more consciously you repeat those words, the better the effect should be. All right? Everyone's ready? You've chosen someone you don't really like so much. So thinking of that person, please repeat after me. Just like me.
Just like me.
Just like me.
Just like me.
This person
This person
is seeking
is seeking
some happiness
some happiness
in life.
in life.
Just like me,
Just like me,
this person
this person
is trying
is trying
to avoid
to avoid
suffering
suffering
in life.
in life.
Just like me,
Just like me,
this person
this person
has known
has known
sadness,
sadness,
loneliness,
loneliness,
and despair.
and despair.
Just like me,
Just like me,
this person
this person
is seeking
is seeking
to fulfill
to fulfill
personal needs.
personal needs.
Just like me,
Just like me,
this person
this person
is learning
is learning
about life.
about life.
Okay, so that's the exercise. Let's see if it changed your attitude at all, if it produced any results. Yes, no?
Yes.
So anyone wants to comment how that exercise changed your attitude or thinking?
It just cools down the thoughts.
Okay, it cools down the thoughts.
Negativity towards
Yeah.
the other person.
Okay. Really, it removes negativity. Anyone else?
Makes me feel like I like them.
Okay. Makes me feel I like that person. Okay, good. Anyone else?
Be more empathetic.
More empathy? Yes, very good. Anyone else? Yes.
Realize that you are like that before also.
Okay. Actually, this is what this verse says, right? Comparison to his own self. We are comparing our position to other person. Yes.
I feel a bit sorry for them, like I've been really mean to them some way and they've been really mean to me, and now I feel like I'm just really sorry for them.
Okay, feeling sorry for the person, very good. And this is actually the purpose of the exercise, because it's called compassion exercise, right? And how compassion is important for all of us, because this is one of the topmost spiritual qualities. And so with this simple meditation, just like me, we can develop this very important quality of compassion. Yes?
It shows us how much all of us are almost the same.
Yes.
All of us have the same needs, we have the same fears, we have the same feelings.
Yes, because we're all spirit souls. We all want to be happy. None of us want to suffer. So we are different materially, but spiritually we're all the same. We have the same needs. Yes.
It taught me that authenticity is better than greatness, because mostly when I'm thinking of that person, I'm feeling that I'm better than them and not being authentic, not realizing I also have the same faults.
Okay, yes, we're feeling we stop comparing our positions and we understand the needs. Good.
Being authentic.
Yeah, becoming authentic, yes.
Just it proves that everyone's desperate, and that's the way they're clearing miseries as well, and that's the way that they deal with it. They're just in the wrong mode, they're dealing with it in the wrong mode, that's just due to their ignorance.
Yeah, we understand what's the cause of their problems. It's always ignorance. Very good. We develop understanding of other people. Yes.
It's like they have the same goal as us, like the same goal, like the same thinking, on the same journey technically.
Yes, we understand that they're the same like us in so many ways. Good. So, how many of you want to practice this kind of exercise regularly? Okay. So we have printouts, and Prabhu can share this with everybody. Okay. We have families here, so you can take one per family. So make sure that it's enough for everybody. And so, but it's very helpful exercise, but it may not be helpful in every single situation. Of course, sometimes if you practice it more, it might be helping. But if the grudge or resentment or negativity is too strong, then despite of that, you do not feel sympathy, you don't feel compassion, right? And probably some of you had this thought as well, that, you know, because nothing is 100% in this world. And so, yes, it helped some of you, but some of you, I'm sure you were thinking, oh, that's, even if I compare this person to myself, still, I don't feel that I'm free from negativity. I still have negative feelings, right? Anyone had this thought that it should be helping, but it doesn't really help me? Anyone? Okay. Few of you nodding your heads that yes, it may not help. And so we want the ultimate weapon of the conflict resolution. And so this is a typical kind of a picture of the conflict, right? Two people blaming each other, finger pointing, right? Anyone knows it, incidentally, that why we don't use this finger for japa? Yes? Why?
Because when you point, it's very rude.
Yes. It's very root finger, right? Very materialistic finger. Finger of control. Yes?
And the one finger is the three.
Yes, very good. Loka Prabhu knows the secret, that one finger pointing outside and three fingers pointing back at us, right? And so this is really important for us to think that we are pointing one finger outwards, but the three fingers pointing at us, they're trying to tell us something, right? And they're actually indicating that there are three more, three times more reasons to look inside of us than to try to look outside. And so, how do we take responsibility? How do we display the best character? And what does it mean to look inside? And so, actually, it's also coming from professional training, and this is what we are combining here. Professional training elements coming from very expensive courses, but you are getting it all for free. That's because we are all Hare Krishnas. Of course, you can also give donations, but pretty much it's free, right? Studying so many approaches in conflict resolution, because I'm doing mediation, which means two people who have conflicts, so I'm in between and I'm helping them to resolve. And oftentimes, when I started that practice, I was looking for a tool which would actually be a self-help for anyone in the victim's position. Because victims are the ones in the first place who started all, right? And common thinking is that victim is the victim of somebody else's fault. right? Somebody else's problem. That problems are caused upon victims. So this is common thinking, but the real thinking is, and it is fully in line with Vedic thought, that every victim is causing one's own problems. That every problem is victim's fault. And so, this is the tool I found, and it's very powerful, and it's fully in line with our principles, and fits into the 3 fingers exercise. So the 3 fingers, how do we look inside? How do we figure out where are the roots of every single problem we have? And you can think of some very big problem which you are failing to find solution for, and you can test this problem against this tool. And so there are 3 very powerful questions you can ask yourself in case of any problem which you cannot solve. And the first question is, how have I caused or created this problem or conflict for myself? And sometimes it's very hard question to answer, right? That one time Srila Prabhupada was on the morning walk, and somehow disciples encouraged him to visit local zoo. So they went into the zoo, and they were passing by all these cages with animals. And zoo is a very strange place, right? It's typical Kali Yuga. Even animals are imprisoned. Because zoo is just animals' prison house. That's all. And so they were passing by one cage, and there was a lion in the cage. And lion was sleeping, and lions look like cats, but they are very big, of course. But they look very cute. And so one brahmachari, young brahmachari, he wanted to, touch this lion, because it was just lying very close to the cage. And so he approached that lion and he tried to touch him, because he was thinking, oh, this animal is sleeping, he will not notice me. But these animals are very sensitive, and so this animal woke up even before brahmachari came close to him, and he swung his paw and tried to hit this brahmachari. And then brahmachari jumped back, being of course very shocked. And Prabhupada looked at him, and he made, like very big eyes, and said, oh, after all, this is animal, wild animal. So if the lion would actually hit the brahmachari and injure the brahmachari, whose fault would that be? Lions or brahmacharis? So, yes. Sometimes we may say that I haven't caused any trouble for myself. Somebody else caused the trouble to me. But where were your head, right? What you were thinking about. And so, always, we don't mean that it's only our fault, that it's everybody's fault. It's a material world. But if we think before we do something, then we have much less chances to get into trouble, right? It's like 2 hands. In order to clap, you need both hands, right? Can you clap with one hand? No. So even though other people try to cause your problems, but if you remove yourself from that situation, you will never have any problems, right? So this is really important to understand what do we do to create problems for ourselves. And so, if we just stop doing that, the problems will disappear. And how do we cause problems? And this is really important. Problems means lower bounds of nature, passion and ignorance, right? And solution is always goodness. And so, in passion, we do wrong things. And we say wrong things, right? How many of you have experienced that? You do something wrong and you say something wrong and it causes problem. Okay. But ignorance is also causing problems. And ignorance means inaction, irresponsible behavior. And more often than not, the problems are caused because we do not do the right thing. We're not doing what we should be doing in this situation, or we're not saying what we should be saying in this situation. And that also causes problems. How many of you have experience of that? Not saying or not doing the right thing. And so then, once we understand how do we cause the problem for ourselves, we can think of the solution, but this is not all, because the root is much deeper than just external situation. And therefore, the second question is, how do I delude myself? So it's always delusion, right? Or Maya, basically speaking. And we delude ourselves in so many ways, but the primary ones are we convince ourselves that we are absolutely right and there is nothing we should try to change or improve in our lives. It's everybody else who has to adjust, right? Like some people say that I'm very easy to deal with once people learn to worship me properly. So yes, sometimes people are like that. They think, I'm not doing anything wrong, it's other people, right? And so this kind of attitude is a big delusion. Or sometimes it's the other way. We think that, oh yes, okay, maybe I'm doing or saying something wrong, but it's beyond my control. I can't do anything, right? I cannot take the responsibility. And so this is the delusion that we are either overestimating or underestimating ourselves. Again, modes of passion and ignorance causing trouble. And of course, then the third and the ultimate question is what to do, right? What shall I do now? And this answer becomes obvious only when we very clearly answer the previous questions, right? And the solution is always the opposite to the problem, right? So the way we create the problem, the solution is opposite to that. And the mentality we have, which causes the problem, the solution is the opposite mentality, right? So that's the most powerful way to solve any problem for yourself. Just take responsibility in life. Lack of responsibility in any area is that crack where Maya enters and causes problems. Okay? How many of you like to practice that? Okay, so more on the printouts. We surprise, unfortunately, that I looked at the schedule. It says when the seminar begins. It doesn't say when it ends. But what's our time limit? Because I was wondering if we have time for questions. If there are any questions, yes.
You say 5 to 7.
5 to 7. Okay. All right. So we still have little time. If anyone has questions about the subject matter, living without conflicts. I think it's very important for all of us to try our best to practice life without conflicts in our own lives, because if you think about it, the first purpose of ISKCON is, we'll be looking at it a little bit more in details tomorrow, but it is to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large and teach all people the technique of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values in life and achieve real unity and peace in the world. So we, as devotees, are expected, Srila Prabhupada is expecting us to contribute to the peace in the world, right? And it's kind of recognized already by the public that devotees are peaceful people. And so the more you become expert in resolving yourself, the more you can help others. And there is a huge need for that. And tomorrow we'll be discussing the subject of spiritual entrepreneurship. And I'll tell you how big and how much valued is the demand for resolving in this world. Actually, this example is coming from the man who introduced ISKCON devotees to mediation and conflict resolution. And the people who are on a very high level of resolving are called ombuds persons. Ombuds, yeah. And so this is an ombudsman on a very high level. He's a professor from Harvard University. And he taught ISKCON devotees mediation course. And actually he did it out of his good will, and he didn't even charge anything, because devotees, he has maybe either friends or relatives are devotees, and so he likes the devotees, and so he said devotees, potentially all of them are perfect mediators, and they can resolve any conflicts, because the greatest skill required for resolving is listening skill. And devotees practice listening skills all the time, right? And so I was thinking, sometimes we have family conflict, husband-wife scenario. So what's the solution? It's very simple. For husband to practice listening skills. So if you are a husband, next time you have conflict with your wife, just see the benefit in it, right? It's an opportunity for you to practice your listening skills. And if you do it regularly, your wife will be very happy. Guaranteed.
What if you become deaf after 30 years?
Well, better to be deaf and Krishna conscious than the other way around, right? No, it's really good. And so, but he himself is doing the resolving, and I was really surprised when I heard that he is the specialist who is costing between 15 and 20,000 US dollars per hour. This is what people pay for resolving. And of course, he is doing the resolving on serious issues. He's invited, for example, when there is a corporation against the trade union conflict, right? Strike. And of course, the corporation is losing a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars per day. So for them, it's cheaper to hire him so that he would help them to resolve that. And this is what he guarantees, that he can do it in a few hours. Very complicated issues, because he's so expert. But I was thinking this is one area where devotees could professionally contribute, and this is how much it is valued in the professional world. So there is a huge scope for devotees in terms of professional development. And your Krishna consciousness can be very, very valuable, even in monetary terms, if you are serious about it. And the world needs it. All right, so any questions you have on the subject? Yes.
Like when you have a conflict and you don't realize it and you don't know how the other person felt, then how do you solve the problem?
If you don't know how other people feel, or how do you solve the problem? Yeah, then we can practice our listening skills and find out from them what they expect. But first, we can, as we were saying, that the only two hands are clapping, and so in any conflict, the fault is on both sides, actually. There are no innocent victims. It does not exist. So fault is on both sides, and that's why it says that two wrongs are only a beginning, right? So it's only the beginning of all the conflicts. And so once we solve the issue with ourselves, we don't have any resentment or grudge towards the person, then we can actually help the other person as well. All right? Good question. Yes, bro.
How do we understand when we get problems from, let's say, not from a person, not from your own mind, but it just happens that you somehow lost something or some property damage happened because of natural circumstances? So how do you resolve that?
How do we resolve problems which are not caused by other people, just by circumstances, right? Well, this is the conflict with Krishna. Because Krishna is the cause of all causes. Like in some warranties it is written, right? That, there is no liability for acts of God. Right? So, yeah. You can hold God liable or responsible because it's beyond our control. But how do we solve this problem? In the same way, by practicing what we've suggested in the beginning, which is seeing the benefits in trouble. And once you see the benefits in trouble, you can realize how to live free from trouble. If you take all the benefits seriously. Yeah, is it helping? Okay.
How we can treat a person after forgiving for too many times and still taking advantage of the forgiveness?
Okay, if we're forgiving someone and person is taking advantage of our forgiveness, how do we treat that person, or how do we relate to that person? Well, actually, someone can, take advantage of us, but then, as we said, as we mentioned in this example of the zoo trying to, touch the lion, that it's always our problem that, some people are the way they are. And so it's like, how do you deal with venomous snake, right? You keep distance. How do you deal with wild animal? You ensure that there is a controlled environment, and so that you do not expect people change overnight, but you change your strategy of dealing with people, and then you will not have any problems, and they can live their life the way they want. So that is very important principle, that we do not want to take advantage of other people, creating difficulties for them, right? We do not victimize other people. But it's also important that you do not allow other people to victimize you, right? So make sure that you do not give any chance for people to take advantage of you. And what's the best way? It is to tell people up front what your expectations are and ask them to verbally confirm that they understand it and they agree to what you said. And then this is the human psychology. Once people agree and confirm, and in, like important circumstances, it's better to do it even in writing, especially when people put their signature under something. They take it seriously, right? So it's like some people, they are not capable or not advanced enough to be responsible in their lives, right? Like children, for example, right? But it's parents' responsibilities to take extra responsibility for the children as well, and train them to behave in a responsible way. And so with some people, you have to behave in the same way, right? Because they are not mature enough to take responsibility for their lives. So if you need to deal with them, you have to create the environment and enter into agreement with them, which creates the conditions in which they have to act responsibly. Is it helping? Okay, thank you. Yes, bro.
If you said earlier that there's also the victim's fault in most of the cases that the conflict arises. But in general, victims never say it's their fault. They always say the opposing party that caused them the problem's fault. So how do we overcome that mentality? How do you overcome, like in your case of mediation, how do you make them understand that you have faults also to cause this problem?
How do we help victims to understand that it's their fault and not somebody else's fault? Yes, it's kind of advanced level, because in here we're just presenting basics, right? Simple approach, which is also very powerful. But the advanced level is the art of asking questions. It's very, very powerful. If you ask the right questions to people, you can change their mentality very dramatically. And so you have to understand their operational mode, how they think. And once you understand how they think, and also understanding their thinking, you can do with questions. And once you know the way their thoughts go, with other questions, you can redirect the flow of their thinking also, and help them understand their problems. So that's kind of advanced art of asking the right questions. But you can do that without telling people that this is your problem, because if you tell that it's your problem, it's not other problem, then you deal with the false ego factor, right?
Yeah.
And they tend to resist. But by asking them questions, certain questions, you can help them to see for themselves that it's them actually who cause problems, not others. So you have to get into very special mode. It's like the detective mode almost, right? You have to become very, very curious about how come that people can have this kind of mentality, and then find out all the details of it. And it's very interesting that if you are very curious about their problem, the roots and the causes and everything else connected to their problems, and you ask them questions about it, many times people just unintentionally even realize how they cause problems to themselves. So it's kind of coaching, counseling skills we're talking about. So it's a little bit higher level. But yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
What if over a period of time, when what a person has causing issue and they didn't want to change, at some point in time, we realize that the person's presence is causing disturbance to other personality. So, in fact, when some situation arises, we prefer the person to be not part of this whole thing. Better don't come, then come. So, would there be a way to do things? You understand what I'm saying?
Can you repeat it?
So let's say in an organization, there's a group of people who run the show, and that personality is causing problem. If despite of asking that you need to change, you need to go with the flow with everyone, they still stick to their way of thinking.
Yeah.
So then at some point in time, they feel that they've been bullied, or the person has been bullied, feel that they're victim, and decided to walk away. So rather than trying to get her back by solving the issue, we say that, okay, better the person walk away.
Is that the solution?
I'm just saying, is that a good solution?
It depends on circumstance. There is a very powerful serenity prayer. It's Christian prayer, but it gives very effective formula, which is applicable to any circumstance in our life. And this is not the whole prayer, but part of the prayer says that, my Lord, please give me strength to accept things I cannot change, accept problems I cannot solve. Please give me intelligence to solve the problems I can solve. No, please give me humility and patience to accept the problems I cannot solve, please give me power to solve the problems I can solve, and please give me intelligence to distinguish one from the other. Right? So yes, in certain cases you have to solve the problems, and in certain cases you just have to accept things as they are, because these problems are not solvable, but not within our capacity. And so we just have to accept and live with it and figure out how to work around it, or maybe just, do something else, etc. All right. Thank you. Anyone else? Somebody else? Yes.
Some conflicts have the potential of destroying someone internally, where you can't actually see that the person is really down or really hurt by the whole thing. So in that case, what do we do? Do we just leave it, or do we try to, as you say, go into an advanced mode of conflict resolution by starting to ask the relevant questions, or do we just stay away from this type of scenarios?
Well, it depends on many factors. It depends on level of our expertise also. That if someone is very expert, they can resolve very difficult conflicts, very difficult problems. So yeah, we have to estimate realistically our own expertise, our own capacity.
No, I mean that, when I say asking questions, get the relevant authorities to ask that question, the professional conflict resolution person.
Yeah, if you know the art, you don't have to have any position, because the questions in themselves are very powerful, and they will change people's thinking. That you don't have to have advantage of any position. Just if you deal with people in a professional way, they will benefit. So developing professional skills is the most important thing. Because professional skills based on knowledge and experience, so it's very powerfully influenced by goodness. And it's a great strength, goodness, which can and should be used in the service of the Lord. So it's like for us, first is to establish ourselves in goodness, as Bhagavatam says, and then utilize that goodness in the Lord's service, and then it will become very impressive. All right. So, thank you very much for your interest. Probably it was an unexpected session tonight, right? You were expecting something more basic, something more simple. But hopefully it helped some of you, right? Did it? Was it helpful?
Yes.
Good. And so yes, because I'm here for a few more days, if you have more questions, you can always see me personally. We can discuss these things. And so we'll have Gaur Arabic, right? Hare Krishna. Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Nitai Gaur Pramanande.
His Holiness Bhakti Rasayana Sagar Maharaj ki jai.